Joe. Great to see
Hey
you
Bill, how
again.
you doing?
You and I have, I've had the pleasure of working with you for quite some time now. And it always kind of amazes me that every time I have a conversation with you, I learn something new. So I'm certainly looking forward to this conversation. And I wonder if you could just share with us a little bit of your background and we'll get the ball rolling with that.
I really appreciate you talking to me today, Bill. Always enjoy our chats, and yeah, equally, I always learn something new as well, especially about what you're doing with Ironsides and the developments you've got continuously rolling out across that piece of software. Quite exciting for somebody like me who uses it quite a lot. But my background, so actually, I started my working life as an apprentice in engineering. So I really loved the idea of, welding, fabrication, getting hands-on with pieces of steel. Um, and eventually, working in that industry, I got myself to the point where I was qualified to nuclear flash standards, which is probably one of
Hmm.
the highest qualifications you can get for welding and fabrication. Um, And then I went into the industry as a machine operator, eventually progressing to team leader roles and then into management. And for my sins, for whatever I've done in the past to deserve it, but I ended up working in the print industry, and I was introduced as part of that to lean and lean methodologies, and it just really seemed to strike a chord with me. Um, and ever since then, I've been really involved in the lean aspects of production and managing plants. Um, and I found that to be a real game changer in the operational roles that I had. In my early career, it was the lean guys were over in their ivory tower somewhere, and the production guys were at the coal face doing the work. And the lean guys would make a suggestion, and the ops guys wouldn't do it because they didn't suit what they wanted to do. And there seemed to be that bit of strife and a bit of conflict in it. So I think having the lean background then, I only had myself to argue with. So it was really, really about that internal. Is this the right thing to do? Does it support the organisation's needs? Is it going to move my department, my teams forward? So it was really about internalising those conversations rather than, having to run to the boss to adjudicate the fight that both teams are having. But it did make a massive difference for myself personally, and the organisations that I've supported. I've really been able to push ahead in lots of different areas and avoid that kind of struggle and debate. And I guess the proof is always in the pudding, isn't it? So the numbers always support whether you did the right things or not. Um, for eventually, I had achieved for myself a degree in lean deployment anyway. Um, Seems to be a bit of common theme. I take to something, I like it, and then push it a little bit harder and get some qualifications behind it. And it's just really seeking that understanding. I spent time with various companies such as Amazon. So I worked with Amazon for a fair few years as area manager. So again, the lean tools really came into it as part of operations there. There can't be anybody on the planet surely who doesn't know Amazon and understand the customer ethos that Amazon carries. So again, that was something that I picked up again for myself. And then I spent time with other big sort of print companies. And I suppose calling them a print company is not strictly correct, but Vistaprint and people like that. So again, that real variety of expertise. For myself personally, I've never been afraid of taking a sideways or a backward step. It's usually because in the course of my working life, you kind of realise your knowledge is not as great in one area, um, because you tend to focus on very specific things in operations. So for me, it was about getting these other experiences and other understandings that I could then later on hopefully bring into my arena and sort of broaden that experience. For the last 8 years, I've worked for Capita in the UK here. My first role here was operations director, and since progressed probably 6, 7 months ago, I was promoted to the head of outbound. So I've spent a fair bit of time in the production facility here. In terms of the day-to-day responsibilities, I look after the site, roughly 150 people employed here. Various big machines, you've been here yourself and seen how many devices we have. We've quite a few. And I'm responsible for the staff in the facilities, have an engineering team here that I look after, I also take part in the strategy for the site and various other management meetings as part of the senior management team here on the site. Have my own team of production managers who I look after, and a few other dotted lines that I report into. It's a corporate business, so you're never in a position alone. There's quite a few people around you that are involved in your activities.
That's great.
Site-wise here, Bill, it's probably just for scope and scale. We produce in excess of 85 million letters here a year. Most of 75% or more go out the same day. So again, it's quite a time-sensitive environment. So again, not only has your quality got to be good, but your delivery has to be spot on for the client as well, which is, the two really main driving forces here. Deliver on time, deliver in full, make sure the quality is right for the client. That'll be something familiar for all operations guys anyway.
Yep. Yep. Well, that's great. Thank you. When we work with our clients and prospects across the United States and Western Europe and UK, one topic comes up everywhere we go, and that's productivity. How can we take what we're doing and get more efficient and be more productive? And maybe you can speak a little bit about how you work with Ironsides to make the tremendous improvements that you've done at Capita.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I've had the same challenges my whole working career, essentially. Any operations guy will tell you that there comes a point where experience, gut feeling, and instinct, they're just not good enough tools to base decisions on. I'm not saying that they're not valid. In some cases, they are, and they're useful things um, as a thinking tool and, help you to analyze situations and make decisions, but they don't cover all the bases. Um, to make good decisions, you really need to have accurate real-time data and some trends behind that, because you don't want to be forced to be making spot decisions. Sometimes you need to take a little bit of a longer view on situations. A good example of that would be seasonality. For if you work in a business that's affected by that, then you'd probably want to review that over time. I think if you look at how we work, for us, Ironsides is the backbone of our data collection, and we use it really extensively here. Not, to get the real time status and updates of each job, but not just each job, each individual document as it makes its way through our production facility. That's all captured in our Ironsides APT. This in effect for us has helped us then to really drill down and understand how our plant functions, because like everybody, you think but the reality, my reality compared to an operator's reality is always going to be a difference in there, right? So you think this actually helps you to really know what's happening in your production facility. It helps us to determine upfront for our clients as well what the best production methods would be. Because sometimes a client will ask you for something and you're going to say yes to it because that's your job. But there's also a client's not just paying you to produce something, they're paying you for your best advice and your experience as part of that transaction. So for us, sometimes we can go back to our client and say, yep, we can absolutely do that for you. But if you do this, can actually save you some money, we can produce it quicker, whatever the outcome may be. And I think that's really important, to manage that relationship, that you be that good, experienced voice and try and help your clients. And the data really helps you understand yourself so you can articulate that really well. One of the things for us that we can see, not just in real time, but historically, where we've got opportunities to manage waste, which is a key. Waste is just effectively stick your hand in your pocket, grab your money, and throw it straight in the bin, because essentially that's what it is. And both of those elements, not just the waste material, but also the time that you save. I would say time is your most important one. You can always make money. You can't. There's nobody I know that can make time. So I would always focus on, saving time, because then I can do something with it. Yeah. So that's pretty much, how I think about it in terms of our production facility here.
Well, thanks for that information. That was terrific. We hear every day about artificial intelligence, and we've had people ask us, how are you going to use AI to improve Ironsides? And of course, we're working that alongside our own existing algorithms. But one of the things we've discovered, and I think you're a proof case, is that when you can create a unique database of your operations with your kit, with your people, with your customers, that's your
Mm.
world.
Yeah,
But to apply artificial intelligence to that is not, we don't really think that's the right answer. We think the right answer was what you just suggested, is you take that data and then you use an experienced person to make the right decisions. And that's
yeah.
where you really hit a home
I
run.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, why would you go for artificial intelligence when you can have the real thing?
No,
For me, it's not just about a solo person making decisions. The big decisions that we have in the operation here are always discussed with my team. And like any big business, you're going to weigh up risks. That's your first thought, isn't it? So
yeah,
it's managing those risks, which, if you manage those appropriately, you're usually left with your one or two different ways forward. And it's just a
yeah,
matter of choosing which one.
yeah. Well, I think it's fair to say the less you know, the higher the risk is. And the more you know, the better you manage that risk.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing that we run into, and frankly, I run into it more in UK and Europe than I do currently in the US, is, really addressing environmental issues and reducing the waste impact. And I would think, I mean, I'm speculating, I hope you can comment, is that, as you manage to greater efficiency and more productivity, it must have an impact on the carbon footprint, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I touched on it on my previous comment, really. So, waste to me is not just waste paper or waste product. It's could be waste of people's time, motion, energy, anything that you classify as a waste. Then, in reality, if you work towards reducing, eliminating, or getting that out of your plant altogether, then you're going to have a beneficial effect on the environment. You probably find along the way that what you're reducing the waste in your processes are going to work better as a result of that, so you're going to be more profitable. Your people are less frustrated because you're spending less time doing wasteful activities or creating waste, let's put it that way.
Yeah,
um, yeah, I mean, I've got a really good example which is fairly recent. It's only in the last couple of weeks. um, so we had a situation where, we monitor our data through Ironsides anyway, and we have really specific things that we look at which are dedicated to how we work. And we spotted that one of our machines was periodically generating remakes. So in other words, a product that we'd printed and we were enclosing and it failed along the way, got rejected, automatically then goes back through the process as a reprint. And we could see these periodic little spikes happening where we're generating these remakes. And because we spotted it, because we could see it, we took a look at the machine in particular, and we found actually what was causing it. It was a really simple 10-minute job to fix it. And just in 1 month, we saved 26 grand, £26,000 just by driving that out of our area. But the key thing, I suppose, is if we didn't have the focus and didn't have the data available, that would never have got spotted because it was periodic. And you come to work and you face the challenges each day. I have the memory of a goldfish, so unless I have data, there's no way I'm going to spot something like that and have the time and attention to get on and remove it from the
yeah,
process. So
yeah,
even that, just this is just a kind of a daily occurrence for us.
yeah,
But 26K is a nice sum of money that you wouldn't throw in the bin otherwise.
great. And as you just mentioned, I would think that, catching these issues early also contributes to the overall continuous improvement and continuous productivity upgrades that
Yeah,
you're making all the time.
yeah. It's the hidden costs as well, Bill, when I think about these things. So you might think, a few thousand remakes, well, it's a few quid, but in actual fact, that goes back to that one thing that I said was really important is time. So you then go back, you have to spend the same amount of labor to produce it, the same raw materials, gas, electric, air, to then get it through. So you're losing all of that, and then the waste that you've generated, you've then got to deal with that somehow. You're probably paying somebody to come and collect that and deal with that on your behalf, plus the impact of the environment. So there's always the hidden costs. You never ever see the true cost of something unless you really take it down that layer or two.
Right, right. we have these conversations with lots of people, and part of the commentary we get is, well, can you give us some specific examples? Could you share any examples of how you've used the system to actually improve productivity or SLA management or things of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we use the data on a daily basis here. We have a production meeting based around some specifics in the data that we get from Ironsides. We're currently, as a business, sitting at 98% SLA. There's not many manufacturing businesses, in my experience, that sit with those kind of numbers that deliver to their clients. And right back at the start, when I expressed to you that we produce 85 million letters a day, it's not like we're producing a small amount, so therefore you can hit your SLAs easily because you have hours and hours available. We're tight on that, so 98% is a really high number. One of the things that we use our data for is our internal improvements. For the next 8 weeks, I've got another cycle of improvements running on my shop floor here. And what we looked at last time around when we were going through this cycle was the operator changeovers. So when you get the data from Ironsides, we can see when the machine's running, when it stops, any rejects, any defects that are generated in that, when the machine starts up again. So we can see that curve and we can put a time against it. In actual fact, in Ironsides, you can go by the seconds, so you can use seconds to build up to minutes, because let's be honest, a minute costs something, right? So, and that gives you a nice cash figure, so you can work out financially what does that actually mean for you. So we've reduced our remakes or not remakes or turnover time on the machine. And once we've learnt it on one, we then change our training documents. We then retrain the operators. We have the one best way that we work to, and we teach everybody that. And basically, what that does for us then is having the ability to query the data, go in and see what's happening, go and make observations on the shop floor. We can then come up with a new changeover plan, take that changeover plan, train the operators on it, get the reduction in changeover time, which then frees up capacity on the machine. And usually, in our case, it's core hours, so they're expensive piece of time, if you like. And we have reduced our remakes, our changeover significantly as a result of doing that. But because we've done it once, it's a nice, easy cycle for us to repeat that. So it's a bit like peeling an onion. We take one layer off, we'll then go back, we take the next layer off, and so on and so forth. And we can see those step changes in our data. So from my perspective, have we done something that has an impact? Yes, and I can see what the impact is. If you want to query that in terms of time, capacity, or money, then I understand exactly what we've done. And here's a good explanation for the operators why we're doing what we're doing. And they also speak the same language as us because we go through this training cycle with them.
That's super. I mean, we're very fortunate. We've had a great partnership with Capita for a long time, and work closely with yourself and also with Ash's IT team. And I mean, it's exciting to see. We tell people that we provide open access to the data, but I'd say that Capita leverages that as well as, if not better than anybody that we work with in the world. And it's exciting to see what you can do with it. I mean, you have some pretty dramatic impacts.
It's something I suppose everybody in manufacturing would aspire to. Your best possible position is to be in a position where you're making decisions based on data, right? It's great. We've all got our own experiences to call on, but the data is the sanity check that you need. Am I doing the right things for my people? Am I doing the right things for the business? Um, you know, you can say, yes, we should be heading in that direction, but the steps that you take to get there and how you're going to manage that and prove that you've done it in the right way is where the data really kicks in and helps you make those decisions.
Yep.
And we make database decisions all the time, and we make changes all the time based on what we get from Ironsides. A good example, I suppose, for every manufacturer, I've touched on peaks and troughs, sort of peak periods and things like that. Every business, I suppose, has that kind of peaks and trough or seasonality built into it. Where probably we have a little bit ahead of most, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think where we're a little bit ahead on that aspect of we understand what our peaks and troughs are, but we've taken that knowledge and we look really closely at what the peaks and troughs in the day are, not just the month, the week, the quarter, the year. We're really focused in on, in that 8 hour shift, what's the peaks and troughs in that? In the next coming shift, what's their peaks and troughs? And, that led us to really look at operator upskilling, multi-skilling operators, moving people in the right. We know there's a little bit of a peak coming and it's in this specific area. We're already ahead of the plan on it, so we're going to move 2 people over there. And I suppose the underlying concept that I'm trying to satisfy from a lean perspective is the concept of flow. So things flow through the plant, and you don't have waiting time, you don't have all of that. And I'm using Ironsides and the data I get from that to manage those micro peaks and troughs that you get through the day. Probably
Yeah,
better than most, I would say.
yeah, you do an exceptional job with that. Speaking of your operators, I mean, there's ebb and flow with operators as well. People come and go, although you have a remarkable tenure, I think, among your staff. What's the learning curve like with Ironsides for your operations staff?
It's really short. So I mean, I suppose like a lot of other manufacturers, when we bring somebody new in on those occasions, we use buddy training as our first introduction. So the person as they join will be put with an experienced operator, and part of that training is they'll take them through the daily uses of APT. Now, for the operator daily functions, we concentrate on just those things. That's all an operator needs to do to be able to do their job successfully, and also to interact with the system and the information that the machines are providing into Ironsides. So that takes probably a couple of weeks for people to get their head around it because it's not, a highly demanding, unique package in that respect.
Yeah.
So the learning curve is quite short, and it's not for most people. I suppose it's not any different than using your computer at home. It's not demanding. You don't have hours and hours. You don't need a degree to manage it. You just need to be able to click a mouse, understand what a screen is showing you.
Yeah.
For us, our screen is really simple anyway. Part of our discussions with you guys when we set this up was how do we simplify it? How do we keep only the relevant things on that screen so it's not
Yeah.
information overload?
Yeah. One thing that's always really impressed me, and I think I've told you this before, is the I think it's the ICE program that you've developed for your staff. And before I ask you to talk about that, I think from my point of view, I mean, the tenure of your staff, I see you several times a year, and I see you year after year. I see the same people all the time.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
what the listeners have to appreciate, because labor is a huge issue wherever we go as well.
yeah,
You have an Amazon distribution warehouse within walking distance of your factory.
yeah.
So that's real competition, but you manage not only to keep your staff, but you have staff to try that and then they come back. So maybe talk about your culture a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the whole culture here is I mean, we're client centric. We care about the customer, and that's, you speak to any of the operators here, as you've done in the past, Bill, and you'll see, delivering on time with the customer is almost ingrained in people here because that's how we lead it. That's how we drive it. Our clients come and visit, so there's a kind of a relationship between, our lowest level employee, the cleaner even knows when we've got customers on site, and they'll come and ask, how did it go? Was the customer okay? And so there is that genuine interest around it anyway, and that desire to please and make sure we achieve. Um, and I think the contribution, if I can point to it directly, the minute you get under control and you're in control of your day and you're not being pushed from pillar to post, those then your job starts to become calm, controlled, and level. So again, the introduction of Ironsides and how we manage that, it's about gaining control over the uncontrollable, if you like. So those things that happen in the day, once you've done it a few times, you're prepared. You have a preparation in your mind and in your team that, okay, it's Tuesday, such and such is likely to drop 50,000 on us today, and we've got to get out of the door. Have we pre-planned? Have we got a bit of capacity there? Have we got, engineers available? All of the things that we learn from experience. That's what we pull together into the pot. And the minute it starts to calm down, you go through a phase where people become a bit nervous and they'll say to you, oh, it's quiet today. Actually, you're busy in production. It's quiet today because you're not running around like a headless chicken. You're not burning your staff out and your managers out by facing challenges from left field every single day. Yeah, that I think is the trick. Um, on your visits here, Bill, it's a really clean, organised facility, and you'll never see my staff running around or sweating or stressing in any way. It's a really calm environment, and that's what being in control of it brings to the party, right?
Yeah.
So people stay with you. Why go anywhere else and have all the stress and strain that a lot of manufacturing businesses have as a daily routine?
I think it's a very distinct byproduct of your overall organizational skills that Ironsides helps to support. And when people are considering the investment, it's something else they should consider because
Yeah,
it happens. You're proof positive of it.
yeah. Well, I would say to anybody in my situation, can you afford not to do it? Because if you can afford to run a plant or a business and be losing money and losing staff and fighting fires every single day, then more power to you. Enjoy it. There should be in your life, as you get a little bit older and wiser, a point where you think the pain, I'm not here to take the pain, I'm here to manage the business. So I want to focus my time and my efforts on managing the business, not managing the fallout from not managing the business. It's a choice you make, isn't it? So.
Well, it is, and I have to make one other comment about the culture there is that I go to a lot of places and they have a suggestion box, and the suggestion
Mm,
box is usually covered with dust and cobwebs, but that is not the case
mm,
at Mansfield.
yeah,
Joe has built a suggestion room where his associates can actually sit down and think about how to make things better. But the absolutely stunning thing to me is that I think when you introduced it about 7 or 8 years ago, you got a couple hundred suggestions, which itself was
mm,
pretty impressive from 150 people, and you still get a couple hundred 8 years later because they're so engaged. It's
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, financially, people will say, well, why are you doing it? It's one of the ways you can give your employees a voice. And one of the biggest things that I got, I suppose, in most industries that I've worked in is, you'll get the comment, well, we told the manager something was wrong, and the manager didn't do anything about it. When you look at it from the shift manager's perspective, so he's working in an environment where he's not in full control of it. Things happen that draw on his attention. By the time he makes his circuit of the shop floor and spoke to every operator, the first one that's made a complaint or asked him for something is gone because he's faced 20 other challenges on the way
Yeah.
around. And most of the time, it's not willful, right? They're not just ignoring employees for the sake of it. So the system I've got is just a way of how do we take that idea, how do we manage it so people can see it's in the process, see who's dealing with it, the steps along the way, close the communication loop on it. So thanks very much for a great idea, or we're not going to do it, and here's why. Having that explanation, it's just nice and visible. So we've worked on that, and in real term, cash terms, last year that suggestion scheme that we have generated £500,000 in savings.
Ooh, wow.
So cash money is on the bottom line, right? But it also feeds directly into your operators. They have a voice in how things work. These are your experts, right? They do the job 8 hours a day, every single day. I just think I know what I'm talking about when it comes to that. I've got a rough idea, but I
Yeah.
don't have the intimate knowledge those guys do. So tapping into that is really important.
Well, to your point, when you get things under control so that you're maximizing your efficiency and productivity, it then creates a time where you can address these other very important issues as well.
Yeah.
And we recently had a reference visit to with a prospect that we'll be dealing with in a couple of months, and I mean, they were just floored. And I think said, what you've done here is something that we could never do. And you
Mm.
said, excuse me, you can't. If I can do it, you can do it, but you have to make the commitment to take the first step.
Yeah.
And that was very impressive.
Yeah, I'm always happy to share the things I do, Bill. And I suppose on one level, I know people are more likely not going to do it because it's hard work. But it's again that conversation we just had about the daily pain. Um, I've seen people that my peers, you get so used to the pain that when it's not there anymore, you miss it. And it's about what do you want for yourself and your staff, right? You want to be able to come to work and focus on the things that are really important. Production should happen if you've got your processes nailed and you understand your processes well and make good decisions on how to manage those. That
Yeah.
should be like a Swiss watch. It should be ticking, and we'd all like to have that. Unfortunate, it's taken me a few years, but we have that here. So me and my managers, we can then spend time on, are we managing our people correctly? Getting an education. Every single manager I've got in my team has been through a university degree in the last couple of years, and myself included,
Wow.
because we have the time in our working day to think, well, okay, what values do we bring to the business, and how we don't want to be the ceiling that our employees are going to bang against when they're trying to move themselves forward. So we've got to be ahead of the game, and to do that, you have to have control. You have to have some time in your day to be able to think about your future and what's the difference you're going to make down the line here.
Yeah. Well, I have to say it's been a wonderful experience, certainly for myself, these last 8 years or so.
Mm.
And we've recently started talking about the new productivity module that we have. So very excited to continue those conversations, and I'll be seeing you in a couple of weeks. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'll look forward to your next visit, and I can show you some of the other changes that we have got in place as a result of our improvements project that we're running for the next 8 weeks here.
That'd be
So
great.
interestingly, you'll see all the Ironsides data on the shop floor. My guys discussing it at the moment. Where
Oh,
are we? Where do we think we need to get to? What steps? So yeah, it brings all of that to the party.
that's great. Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome. Thanks, Bill.